when you look at history the way that it's being presented right now regarding the Nazi era, there are big things missing out of it. There's a lot of hidden elements. But when you overlay gay history on top of that, the homosexual historians and scholars admit and point out that this person was homosexual, that person was homosexual, this incident was related to homosexuality, etc. And all of a sudden, it becomes clear. There's a whole different understanding that you can have. And so the only person that could have written a book like this is someone who both reads regular, normal mainstream history and also reads the history of the gay movement. Now, why people don't read the history of the gay movement that aren't homosexuals or have some special reason for doing it? I'm probably one of the few non-homosexuals in the world that's ever read as much gay history as I've read. And I didn't set out to do that. I don't like reading about that. I find it very distasteful. But the reason that I did it is because I was the spokesman for a ballot measure in Oregon. I was the communications director for a group called the Oregon Citizens Alliance, and back in 1991, we filed a ballot measure to try to stop the gay agenda in that state. It was very strongly worded, and the international gay community came after us from all over the world. They sent teams from everywhere, and I got my eyes open to what this movement was really about. And their entire campaign was based on the theme that people who oppose gay rights are like the Nazis. And I thought my job was just simply to differentiate between what the Nazis did, hate-based opposition to homosexuality, and Christian moral-based opposition. I thought that was my job, was just to show how the two things were different. And I didn't know anything about homosexuality in the Nazi Party at all. Then one day, this Mormon guy, who happened to be just an amateur researcher, he came into my office, and he had this little sheaf of papers, and he threw it on my desk, and he said, "Don't let them say this. Don't let them get away with this. They were homosexuals. The Nazis were homosexuals." And I thought, well, this guy's a kook, right? He's a kook. I didn't believe it. I really accepted the same thing that everybody else has been taught, that what most of the people are criticizing me, I believed what they believed. And so I saw this, I nodded politely, said thank you very much, right? And then when he left, I stuck it in a file. I didn't even read it. I stuck it in a file in my office, and then I went through the rest of the whole campaign doing what I'd been doing before. After that election cycle, the next election cycle, we lost that ballot measure, but the next time around, we took the same wording, modified it a little bit, and then went out and ran local ballot measures in cities and counties all over Oregon, wherever we had won, and we were having tremendous success. When it came to the initiative in Marion County, Oregon, Salem, the state capital, the leader of the opposition group, he wrote a letter to the newspaper, the Salem Statesman Journal, saying that he'd just returned from Dachau, visiting the Dachau concentration camp in Germany. And he said, what an amazing similarity there is between the Oregon Citizens Alliance and the Nazis. And I said, okay, that's enough. I've had it. I remembered that this file was there. I said, maybe there's something in here that I can just hit this guy back with. I'm tired of this. I'm not going to go through this again. And I took that sheaf of papers out, and for the first time I read it. And I tell you, my jaw dropped to the desk. It was about 25 or 30 pages of direct quotations from history books that painted a picture, even the little bit of stuff that was in that not only was the Nazi Party dominated by homosexuals, but that there would never have been a Nazi Party if it hadn't been for the German gay movement. And I was literally flabbergasted at that. And I wrote a guest editorial for to the paper that started this enormous controversy that went back and forth for 6 weeks. Every day there was stuff in the paper back and forth. And so much so that the local professor of rhetoric at Willamette University actually wrote a paper on the effective use of rhetoric, using some of my stuff from the paper, and delivered it in a paper in Amsterdam that summer about that exchange in the paper. That's how significant it was. But what I saw in that process was they were so bothered by what I was putting out that they were frothing at the mouth. And because I didn't quite gather the implications of it at first, but the more they reacted to that extreme, the more I realized this is something very, very important. And so during that same time, I met Kevin Abrams by phone. Somebody in my office knew him, called him up, put us on the phone together, and in that conversation, we decided to write this book, The Pink Swastika. And over the next few months, we gathered information. I spent hundreds of hours just pouring through history books over and over again, looking, going to the libraries, finding everything that they had, looking in every single resource that I could find, and going into the gay history books. That's why I went there, is I had no interest in gay history whatsoever. But when I started searching there for facts, I had my mind blown. And this book now, they're in the 4th edition, there's almost 400 pages of documentation in this book. Every single page is just simply filled with quotations and citations from other people's work, right? This is not something, I'm not writing a novel, right? I'm not conjecturing about things that might have happened or, trying to put a spin on facts or whatever that suit my particular perspective. I'm citing specific facts and analysis by mainstream historians. At least 25, maybe as much as 40% of the citations in this book are from homosexuals themselves. Now, before I get into the actual substance, because this is going to be very interesting to you if you have any interest in history at all, before we do that, I went up to my attic. I've kept all the source books that I used to write this book. I knew that I would be attacked by putting this book out, and I kept all the books that I used. And so I went up in my attic knowing that I was going to come here on this trip. I had one particular book in mind that I thought would be really good, but I reached in one of the boxes. This is the first book that I pulled out. So it's selected at random. But I thought when I looked at the thing that I had selected in here, I said, well, this is really good. I could have picked any other book that could do the same thing, but I just want to read you this. Let me show you this book. This is a book called Hidden from History. This is a gay history book. Hidden from History, Reclaiming the Gay and Lesbian Past. Martin Duberman, Martha Vicinius, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name right, and George Chauncey Jr. They are from different universities. Okay. About the editors. Martin Duberman, Distinguished Professor of History at Lehman College in New York. Martha Vicinius is Professor of English and Women's Studies at the University of Michigan. George Chauncey Jr., Assistant Professor of History, University of Chicago. These are scholars, right? And there's 3 of them together working as a team. What did they say? What did they say? They actually cite in here one of the things I use, and this is a little bit long, but it's going to be very helpful to be able to understand. Now, I'm going to be talking about some of these facts. Let me give you a little bit of a setup, so you know the context of this. When Adolf Hitler was elected to be the Chancellor of Germany in 1932, in 1933, he actually took that seat, right? He was elected, then there was the period of time, then he was inaugurated in 1933. One of the very first things that he did when he had power is he attacked the headquarters of the effeminate branch of the German gay movement that was operated under the name of the Scientific Humanitarian Committee, and they were headquartered in the Sex Research Institute of Berlin. It was headed by a man named Magnus Hirschfeld, and it was a place that was very, very significant. It was sort of like the Kinsey Institute of Germany, and that was May 6th, 1933. On May 10th, 1933, there was an incident that anytime you see a documentary about the Nazis, what's one of the things you're most likely to see? A pile of burning books, right? A pile of burning books. That's one of the. It's sort of like, it's iconic that if you think of Nazis, you think of burning books, right? Well, that video clip that they show, those photographs that they show, were of the burning of the materials from the Sex Research Institute of